thank you guys for joining us. You're watching live on the Nehanda Radio, Nehanda TV Facebook page. So we are about to interview the former finance minister, who is the president of the People's Democratic Party in Zimbabwe. He's traveling, of course, with his colleagues, MDC-T President Nelson Chamisa, former Education Minister David Coltart, and others. So we all obviously are going to be discussing some of these issues, and we're going to be taking some of your comments and throwing them at the Honorable. Okay, I'm just double checking to see if you guys can hear us loud and clear. We're good to go? Okay. Former Finance Minister Tendai Biti joining us. Okay, let's start with the reason why you are here in the United Kingdom. Every time you go outside the country, much is made by the state media, the trip of doom, as they always call it. From the horse's mouth, what are you guys doing here?
Well, we are the next government. We are an alternative government. And like any other government, we have got an obligation to engage with other governments, with other sovereign states. Mm-hmm. So we have been all over the show. We have been to South Africa. We have been to Kenya, to Tanzania. We will very soon be going to Ghana and to Nigeria. We've been to the United States of America. Now we are here to engage with the British community, including the British state, the British government, the British Parliament, in respect of issues of common interest. Number one, the relations between Zimbabwe and the United Kingdom. Number two, the issue around the coup of November 2017 and how we can restore Zimbabwe back to legitimacy following that coup. And thirdly, of course, the morning after the election, what is our vision? We're selling our vision and what we intend to do after assuming office. So that's why we're here. We're also engaging old friends, civic society. We're also engaging a huge component of our body politic, which is the diaspora community, in respect of which we are pushing for them to be granted the right to vote and to become shareholders and stakeholders and not objects and subjects of the political processes back at home.
Now, the framing of all these visits when you go outside the country, with the current government, they are saying obviously Zimbabwe is open for business. They are also on their own re-engagement. And they portray the picture that you are throwing spanners in the works and that every time you are going out, you are reversing what they are trying to achieve. How do you respond?
It's a paranoid, schizophrenic regime, infantile regime, which doesn't understand the role and duty of alternative opinion, which doesn't understand the body fabric of alternative opinion. We have to do what we are doing because our people expect us to do. We have to do what we are doing because it is leadership. They are where they are by virtue of the accident and misfortune of the coup of November 2017. They were not elected by anyone. No one elected Emerson Mnangagwa to be the president of Zimbabwe. So they don't have a better legitimacy than ourselves for engaging with the international community. And we're going to do that. And contrary to their perceptions, we can't harm Zimbabweans because we are Zimbabweans. We can't harm Zimbabweans because we have been harmed by 38 years of predatory, extractive, exclusive politics. So we want to build the bridges that they have destroyed. We want to reconstitute circles of inclusion where there have been cycles of instability caused by these very same people. So they should in fact be thanking us for actually building the bridges that as ZANU-PF, as the junta, they've bent in the last 38 years.
Okay. Now, talking about building bridges, you are going into this election as the MDC Alliance. One obvious thing that obviously sticks out when one looks at the MDC Alliance is the fact that is essentially a reconfiguration of the 1999 MDC, that you have yourself, you have Welshman Khupe and Nelson Chamisa. So people are asking the obvious question, are we going to see a collapsing of all these parties or morphing into one political party? In simple terms, will the MDC Alliance become a political party?
Firstly, it was the vision of the late and great Dr. Morgan Tsvangirai to bring the other two formations back home, back to the MDC-T. So in June of 2017, on the 9th of June to be precise, President Tsvangirai called Welshman Khupe and myself to his house. And he said, guys, we started this project. What is our legacy? What is our vision? So we have to work together. On the 5th of January 2018, he also called us and says, guys, I'm leaving for South Africa. I don't know whether I'm coming back, but I would like you to hold the hand of Nelson Chamisa, to work with Chamisa, to fulfill my legacy. And that legacy is that I want you guys to come back home. So I think that you know, the work we have been doing as the MDC Alliance, you can see the chemistry, you can see the love. I think that it would be foolish to disappoint people by continuing in our different jackets. But of course, there are processes that have to be done. There are councils that have to meet. But for all intents and purposes, it's a done deal. That's the only right thing to do, because that's what Morgan Tsvangirai wanted, and that's what the people of Zimbabwe want.
Okay. Abi, before we move to the economy, where I'd like to draw on your strengths as a former finance minister, I'll just take the legal route for a bit and just interrogate briefly the ongoing battle with Thokozani Khupe. How do you see that playing out, given that you are essentially going to the wolf as sheep to ask for a judgment in your favor? Some say it's a captured judiciary. How do you see it?
I don't think that it is the judiciary that is going to determine the legitimacy of leadership in the MDC. And I think that has already been done consistent with the constitution of the MDC-T. The constitution is very clear that when the president demise, a vice president takes over to serve the remaining term of that president. So there were 3 vice presidents. The National Council met in February of 2018 and chose Nelson Chamisa to succeed President Tsvangirai. But the real test is on the ground. The real test is the legitimacy on the ground. And there's absolutely no question that Advocate Nelson Chamisa both has de facto and de jure control of the movement. So you
are not worried by the prospect of the courts giving Thokozani Khupe the MDC-T name?
I'm a constitutional lawyer myself. I'm a legal expert. That can't possibly happen. The most that they can do, which is what Judge Stisberry did, was to say, look, this thing needs to be ventilated in a trial process. But the court of public opinion is speaking. The court of public opinion is speaking. The international courts are speaking, because we are being received by governments in our capacities as leaders of the alliance. So legitimacy is an issue that is behind us. Our biggest rally was in fact on the 5th of April 2018, and it was in White City Stadium. The people have spoken, the people are speaking. So it's not an issue. Our fight is with Robert Mugabe. Our fight is with Emerson Mnangagwa. Our fight is with the Junda. And any other person fighting in our corner, whether it's Joyce Mjuru, whether it's Dumiso Dabengwa, whether it's Elton Mangoma, we need to fight on the same side, because we have got one opponent, and that opponent is the regime, is the Junda, not a sister, not a brother who has been in the opposition trenches with us for such a long time. We have nothing against anyone in the opposition at the present moment.
Okay. In your alliance campaigns, you seem to be promising a lot in terms of resolving some of the economic challenges that are facing the country. An accusation that has been thrown is that some of your promises are not realistic. But before we get to that, could you, in a way, summarize for people why we have the challenges that we have, particularly cash shortages, where people are struggling to get their money? How would you, as a new government, solve something like that people are facing on a day-to-day basis?
Thank you, Lance. That's a very important question. We are where we are because of an irresponsible, an incorrigible regime that doesn't know how to manage the affairs of the country, that doesn't know how to manage this economy. The primary cause of the disequilibrium that is at home in our economy right now is a government that can't spend within its means, a government that believes that money grows on trees, a government that just spends and spends and spends and spends. As a result, we've got an overwhelming fiscal deficit that is now 30% of GDP. They've been issuing treasury bills like confetti. Now, when you have a budget deficit, you create a gap. And in economics, the challenge is not the gap. America has got the biggest gap of all the countries in the world. The challenge is, how do you monetize this gap? How do you close this gap? This regime has been engaging in extra-legal means to finance this gap. Number one, they've raided the central bank, the Reserve Bank, literally stolen, committed a bank robbery in stealing money from the central bank to finance their expenditure. But the central bank, as you and I know, does not have money. It keeps your deposits and my deposits. So we can't get money. When I left government in 2013, we left US $6.5 billion sitting in banks, sitting in the central bank. That's why you could go, any Zimbabwean could go to the ATM and get $5,000, get $300. We can't get a dollar. We are on this trip, we couldn't get $50 from our bank. Number two, they've been issuing these treasury bills like confetti. Number three, they've been running the Ponzi scheme of RTGS. So the most common form of currency in Zimbabwe is the RTGS system. But it's just a mirror account. It's just a Ponzi scheme. So broad money supply is now $11 billion. But the percentage of cash and deposits is only 1%. So we intend to deal with this situation by, number one, demonetizing the bond note. Number two, ring-fencing people's balances in their banks to prevent what happened in 2007 and 2008, where value was lost. Number three, we intend to strengthen the regime of multiple currencies as we return back to a monetary union where we'll be able to use a regional currency.
When you say demonetize the bond note, just simplify for people.
Scrap it.
So doing away with it.
Doing it away with it, Kachana, bury it, and build a big mausoleum for it.
Okay. We've talked about things like bullet trains, building airports in Mtoko and places like that. In terms of growing the economy, you received a lot of praise as the finance minister in the unity government for the way you ran things. Looking forward and seeing this opportunity to be actually, in government, how do you see yourselves as an alternative government growing the economy? What are some of the things that you are offering people and say, this is what we are going to do?
First, what is our formula? So we are a social democratic alliance. Mm-hmm. So we believe in the operation of a strong market economy. Mm-hmm. Strong market economy. Entrepreneurs must play their part. Business must create wealth, and the government has no business in business other than a facilitative role. So we are going to do that. But we're also going to play what is called a Bonapartiste role, which is basic Keynesian economics. The state is going to play a role in order to facilitate the reconstruction of our country. So we're essentially going to reconstruct ourselves out of this crisis. So we intend to rebuild roads. We intend to rebuild airports, dams, railway, and so forth. But this is not financed by the government. This is financed by three sources. Number one, foreign direct investment. Number two, bilateral assistance from IFIs, the World Bank. Remember, the original name of the World Bank is actually the Bank of Reconstruction and Redevelopment, and it did a fantastic job for Europe after the Second World War. So that's why we need to resolve the debt question, because the debt question is a precondition of Zimbabwe accessing the huge amounts of money that are sitting in the African Development Bank, that are sitting in the World Bank itself, that are sitting at the International Monetary Fund. So finance from IFIs is a key instrument. Third instrument is private-public partnership, PPIs. So we intend to attract investments in the form of BOTs, build, own and transfer, in the form of BOTs, build, own, operate and transfer. So a combination, a mixture of models involving the private sector will rebuild our country. What are the major things that we want to do? And I will mention them. Number one, we've got a road infrastructure of 88,000 kilometers. When Smith left, he left 20% of it was paved. Now less than 10% of it is not paved. So we've got a duty and obligation of reconstructing that transport network, transport infrastructure to modern standards. That's why we're talking of spaghetti roads. That's why we're talking of dualization, multiple roads, in particular the road from Beitbridge to Victoria Falls, in particular the road from Beitbridge to Churundu, in particular all the major infrastructure roads in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Number two is energy. We have got a capacity of installed capacity of 2,000 megawatts right now. But on a day-to-day basis, we've got blackouts because we're only generating 700 megawatts. So we want to construct installed generation capacity of 6,000 megawatts. That can be done. The private sector can. This is the list of our challenges. Rebuilding our country is the list of our challenge. Our biggest challenge is how do we rebuild the social contract? How do we rebuild the assault of the value system by ZANU-PF? The assumption by ordinary Zimbabweans that you can make money without working. That Philip Chiangwa is a hero. That Vikno Chivayo is a hero. False idols who believe you can make money out of commodification of trade and industry. That is what is going to be the difficult task of reconstituting the social contract, reconstituting Ubuntu, the value system, because years and years of ZANU-PF abuse has made many of our people look and sound like ZANU-PF.
Okay, so this is a continuing discussion. I believe Tendai Biti has a very important meeting that he needs to be attending, but we continue this conversation. You're watching this live, but throughout the whole of today, as I've said, this is a continuing conversation. We'll speak to Tendai Biti, Nelson Chamisa, and David Coltart. Thank you.
Aluta continue.